All right, how we doing?
Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry it took me a while to get all ready. I know you've seen some of this before, and so, but I didn't see what y'all got presented to earlier. I know they all spent a bunch of time with Peter. Normally, I like to kick off the meeting, get my perspective first. Peter and I share our perspective. We have different strengths and different interests. A little about me. I don't know if many of you know me. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, and I would love to actually make sure I know everybody here. So maybe just you can tell me a little bit about you. I think you probably did this earlier, but maybe just to highlight something about you, something you're passionate about, something you're excited about, what you're working on, anything in that genre, whatever comes to mind. So Travis Oliphant, I grew up in Utah, was raised in the mountains, but not really. I was raised in the Flat Valley. And a lot of times computing is governed by people that study computer science, and they go and they figure out how am I going to create models and architecture, and they get kind of geek out around the computer science part of it. For me, computers have always been a tool, just like mathematics have always been a tool to get things done in the world, and things to serve other people. And that's what we're here. That's what we're about here, is trying to help give superpowers to people to change the world. We're serious about this. A little campy, perhaps, and kind of give superpowers to people to change the world. But we're actually pretty serious. And the people that change the world are people that we change the world because we help those who do. But I've had the opportunity and privilege of talking to people all over the world, people who are finding cures for cancer. It's hard work. It all sounds glamorous, but at the end of the day, they're sort of usually buried in mounds of data. They're buried in experiments they don't really understand. They're trying to infer information from a lot of stuff. And the more we can give them tools that let them quickly blend through that, the happier they are. I had that experience myself. I learned Python when I was a grad student in 1997, 98 time frame. That's when I encountered Python. Before that, I used MATLAB, I used Perl, I've been a C programmer, I've used Fortran. I've been tinkering with computers since I was a 8-year-old. Timex, Sinclair, BASIC, all those things. Always loved to use logic and math to get things out of the world. So that's what I'm still doing. That's what we're still doing here. When I learned Python, what I loved about it is I could think about my problem. I didn't have to get tied up into monads and functors and pointers and structures and algorithms. I could if I wanted. I wasn't limited from that, but I didn't have to. I could just think about the problem I was trying to solve. And that excited me. Our point is, and this is exactly our point as a company, we're trying to help the people that are working to affect change. We're trying to help the scientist who's looking for planets in the solar system. We're trying to help the cancer researchers trying to discover if there's a gene and if they can correct that gene with some drug treatment or some specialized immunotreatment based on a particular individual. We're trying to help somebody detect fraud in the financial networks. We're trying to help someone understand what their risk is when they're making a derivative trade. We're trying to help people who are trying to affect change not to become a software expert, but they need software. They need the tools of software to do their job. That's what we're about. And my belief is if you let people talk about their data, they will. And if you talk about their data in consistent ways, then that amplifies. Then people can talk about models and build models together in ways that they agree on, not just, oh, okay, I think of data this way and they got to come over to my world in order to do the calculations I've created. Well, I have other calculations I want to do. Well, then you got to still think my way. When I kind of got started in Python with the SciPy library. That's really what brought me into the Python ecosystems. I started the SciPy project in 1998. And it was about just making modules accessible to Python users. And I found that I loved to wrap C and Fortran. I loved to make Fortran and C libraries available to everybody. And I hated making C++ libraries available to people. C++ was really hard to make available. And why is that? C++ is modern, it's better, it's more advanced. The reason is because C++ created abstractions and expected you to stay in that abstraction. They didn't want you to you make this object, and I'm not going to tell you how I've constructed this object. Concretely, if you understand what this means, there is no application binary interface for C++. There's no way for you to communicate to somebody else what that abstraction built. And I think that's actually a problem when we talk about big data. Because if we're in an area where data is shared, we need to be able to talk about how we're building abstractions from first principles in a uniform way. And that's why you look at the projects that we've been building, it's Blaze, fundamentally trying to help people think differently about the way they do calculations in a way that doesn't lock them into a silo. Talk about Bokeh. Bokeh is trying to help people take their high-level array-oriented expressions and using syntax that's familiar to them, Python, R, and quickly build web displays, web applications, instead of having to go become a programmer or a software expert to do that. Then you look at some of our, we have other technologies. We found that, for example, to move the world forward, we had to do package management. The problem with a lot of in the Python ecosystem was that people weren't able to install things. So we spent a lot of time on Conda. That's turned out to be our most successful so far product is Anaconda, kind of just making it easy for people to get everything, right? And using that, we're starting to see now some of the other technologies that are newer start to people get really excited about. Bokeh, Numba, Blaze, or Numba, Blaze, and then coming out of Blaze, we've actually had Dask. It's kind of emerged as a sort of a new concept even. So I emphasize those because I want you to understand that technology means something to me personally. I care about it. I want to make sure that we are developing it and that we are rock stars. And I want to make all of you rock stars in what you're doing. That's what I want. Nothing would make me more excited than we are, as a company, making everybody rock stars by giving you the ability and the freedom and the capability. We build products. We're currently starting with the Anaconda platform, building on the success of Anaconda, building an Anaconda platform, and Peter talked to you at length, I think, about those products. But I wanted to give you my color on it and why I care about it. So these three questions actually tie into what is going to be emerge as the Continuum brand promise. What do you get when you go with Continuum? What are you promised? And it's really the answers to these questions. If you think about the answers to these questions are acceleration. What if we can accelerate your work? Not just optimize the code, it includes optimizing the code, make it so you're actually using your GPU, using your CPU, using all the cycles you have, but also optimizing your development time, using your data and your knowledge to get solutions quickly. So acceleration, that's something we Continuum is about and trying to promote. Then also, what if you could combine data in innovative ways to discover new, whatever. It's really hard actually to come up with, we're going to say new drugs, create social good, enable insights. There's a long list. That's what's so exciting, actually. You go to a PyData conference, you go to a sci-fi conference, I've been doing this for 18 years, and I have met thousands of people doing amazing things. And it's actually, it's really exciting to realize that you're building something that so many people are benefiting, and you're fundamentally changing what happens in the world. And we're empowering people closest to the problem. So that's another aspect. We're trying to help people. Scientists, engineers, they don't really get a name for them. Data scientist is a name that kind of sticks to many people, but it's broader than that. It's bigger than that we're helping. It's computational scientists, quants, geophysicists, engineers of all stripes. All of you are here because the person who interviewed you and the people who interviewed felt that you exhibited these values. These are sort of, to us, the core values. There's more things we value at the company than these. But we call these our core values because they are, if we're having a hiring discussion and talking about somebody, they may have all kinds of other things to bring to the table. But if we can't see in them the seed of these values, then we have to make a different choice. This is what we push forward. And I'm really excited about these. We've kind of we talked about this at length and try to distill out what is at the heart of who we are. And I wanted to go a little bit and kind of talk what I think these mean. We believe in the spirit of craftsmanship. We all really like that word, basically, because it conveys something. It conveys the idea that you take pride in what you do. Obviously, from a developer perspective and from a coding perspective, we know what that means. But even from anything we're doing, if you're writing a document, if you're creating a presentation, if you're helping somebody, if you're doing an interview, taking pride in it, taking ownership of it, recognizing that's you. Imagine yourself a craftsman putting your mark on something, and people are going to see that and recognize they don't know who you are. They're only going to know what you produce, and from that, you're going to define you. So that's why we want to have that spirit of taking pride in our work, and improving the things around us, and ownership of the value of the brand, and creating our own brands around that. Continuous learning. This is a big one. We went back and forth learning and teaching. We know that both go hand in hand. I would argue that for everything you teach, you should be learning 10 to 100-fold. You're doing a lot more learning than you're going to do teaching. We want you to teach, we want you to share, but at the heart of any progress, all of us come into this world with absolutely zero knowledge. And the only way we get it is to learn. And I would argue that all of us have more to learn than we have learned already. Right? All of us. there's so much more available to us, and we won't get it, and we won't learn it, and we won't become better unless we have that attitude of continuous learning. And that means opening ourselves up to the idea that others may be right and we may be wrong, but not being shy about what we know. There's a difference. If we know something and we feel about it, part of learning is actually, when I was a teacher, I realized I learned better. When I had to explain something to somebody and really say, hey, I believe this is true, that I'm going to own this, I'm going to stand up for it, I learned a lot better than when I was just sort of passively accepting what somebody else was saying. So there's an aspect of learning really is about working. Each of your individual work and projects, you'll have some aspect of this. But I guess, to me, this is a spirit of, it's an attitude. It's an attitude that we can all adopt and that we all need to absorb. So, and it's important to preface that with passionate contribution. That's the final kind of piece. Care about what you're doing. Engage deeply. Build communities. When I got involved with open source, the reason I did it is because I loved what was happening. I loved what I saw. This is early days. In 1998, I was a graduate student, and being a graduate student, you're already kind of loving learning, you're loving to contribute, you're kind of in this scientific method. It's all about producing things for the world to absorb. But I found that software, I could do it more effectively and more easily. I put a package called Multipack on the net, and people would download it all over the world. I get emails from a guy in Estonia. Never met him, didn't know who he was, but he'd send me emails and say, hey, this is cool, but here's some help. Here's something else. And that enlisted in me a desire to continue to contribute back. And that stayed with me for 18 years. I still strongly desire, everything we're doing here at Continuum is an extension of that desire to give back. And realizing, well, to give back, I'd have more people working on this project, but those people need to have jobs. I need to have jobs. I had 6 kids. My kids are going to college. I need to support them. I can't just write open source software without getting paid. Everybody else is the same way. They need to have some way to sustain this. Got me interested in economics. Got me interested in thinking about how does the world work? How do people actually, how do businesses work? So all of that desire to contribute is what I think leads to production and to creating good things. And there's a lot of ways to do it. So, I contributed by, creating communities and creating software and creating companies. Other people will contribute by creating teams and creating projects and creating new open source ideas. There's lots of ways to do it. Others contribute by, on their weekends and night, they come here, they do a great job, and on the weekends and nights help homeless people, or they help make the world a better place. There's lots of ways to contribute, but it's about having an energy that's what you're about. You're about trying to make the world a better place and contributing and not shrinking, and also doing it in a way that you can build in a building fashion. Are there any questions about these values? Anything that you kind of want some clarification on or understand? Fantastic. Fantastic.